Hey guys, Darren Murphy here, aka More Precious Dust. I hope everyone had a happy Thanksgiving. For my part, I got a brand new microphone for Black Friday, so I hope my audio sounds improved. In my last video, we talked about using reference tracks to help make better and more objective mixing decisions. But towards the end, I did pose the question of why we were using fully mastered commercial-ready tracks to reference for our mixing stage. Wouldn't we only use or reference mastered songs once we got to our own mastering stage? And I answered, no, absolutely not. Use whatever you have at your disposal to help make better mixing decisions, because that's where 99% of your problems need to be fixed. Do not rely on the mastering stage to fix mixing issues. And I believe in that sentiment so much that I will drop this controversial take on mastering. If you don't have the money to hire a fully fledged mastering engineer, just let our machine overlords do it. I guess you can call that a hot take. So I've been producing music now for well over a decade, ever since my friend bootlegged Ableton 8 for me back in my college apartment. For better or for worse though, he also chose to bootleg a very powerful mastering plugin by the name of Isotope Ozone, which I'm sure plenty of you have heard of. Now, I knew very little about mixing back then, but I knew even less about mastering. So in my early years, I would make a beat that I liked, and then I would throw Ozone onto my master track. Huge mistake. Firstly, it was horrible for my CPU.
But that's beside the point.
The reason that it is such a bad mistake was because having a mastering program on your master track while your mix is sitting right there in front of you destroys all of your objectivity. And the concept of objectivity in music production is a very important discussion to have. When I started writing this video, I only wanted to focus on mastering, but I quickly realized that I could not separate mastering from the concept of objectivity. So we're going to be talking about both. For the moment, just know that maintaining your music in an objective light is imperative to making sound mixing or mastering decisions. Now, there are plenty of ways to retain that objectivity, and we'll talk about a few. But for now, just know that when I threw that mastering plugin onto the master track of my project, my objectivity went out the window immediately, and I didn't even know it. I would switch endlessly between tweaking the master through Ozone and tweaking the mix because both were right there at my fingertips. Seems convenient, but that so-called convenience is a death sentence for your objectivity. Soon you're 20 decisions in, and you realize your music sounds worse than it did before you ever opened your mastering plugin. And it would be extremely difficult and sometimes impossible to backtrack to what you started. So, okay, fine. I learned that wasn't a great situation, so I started bouncing my mixes, bringing that into a new project and putting Ozone onto the master track. Definitely solved my CPU problems, but more importantly, it was a step in the right direction to retaining
my objectivity.
So why does listening to a bounce track do this? Well, you're now separated from the project where your mix exists, where you had the utter freedom to adjust countless parameters on the fly as you were listening. You're separated from the mindset you had when you had that freedom. And now that you don't, your brain is forced to listen to the song as a single entity, and thus it's forced to objectively notice its flaws. It really is a psychological phenomenon. Another way to retain objectivity is time. Don't listen to your bounce track directly after it's done bouncing. Give your brain a rest. Even 15 minutes makes a difference. And if you have time to spare, then sleep on it. Come back to it the next day. Another way to retain objectivity was the subject of my last video, the use of reference tracks. So please check that out if you haven't already. Use anything to retain your objectivity, any tool at your disposal, because it is that important. But okay, back to mastering. You throw your bounced mix into a new project that only has your mastering plugin on it. I'm sure there are plenty of people out there who work well in this configuration with this setup. But you know the problem I had with this setup? I didn't know how to master. Ozone is just one mastering plugin out there, and I right now have a very outdated version of it because I don't use it. I think they're up to Ozone 10 now. So check out all of the parameters available to you. It is quite extensive and complicated. Just so you guys are clear, I know my way around it at this point, but for someone just starting out, it can be daunting. Now, there are presets in this mastering program, as I'm sure there are in all the rest. So it probably won't take that much work to get something good coming out the other side. But even if you did do that, even if you did, mastering your own music still grates on your objectivity a little bit. It's your music, and you undoubtedly have a very deep relationship with that music that's not going anywhere. So basically, what I'm saying is the best way to retain objectivity when mastering your own music is to not master your own music. So here's where I get back to my hot take. I don't have the money to spend paying a mastering engineer to master my track over and over and over. I think one payment may get you a few redos, but then you have to live with the product indefinitely. And what if you hire someone who you don't work well with? Or just someone who, from a communication standpoint, you guys are just on dissimilar wavelengths, just missing each other. There is a risk there. So what's a boy to do?
Let machine overlords take care of it.
There are plenty of algorithmic-based mastering services available online, as I'm sure you knew. Lander, eMaster, Cloud Bounce, which one? Major Decibel, etc., etc. There are a lot out there. And this video is not going to be about comparing one to another or telling you which one's best or which one's cheapest, etc. And I'm not going to bias you by telling you which one that I use. There are plenty of videos out there on YouTube comparing one to another. And I actually think, as an aside, those videos can be dangerous, which I'll explain a little later. I'm here just trying to deflate the stigma that surrounds using an algorithm to master your music. Now, it's not going to sound as good as a human mastering engineer, but with advancing technology these days, it's getting pretty close. And I'd argue that the casual listener will not know the difference from one to another. Now, this path may not be for everybody. When I get close to the mastering stage of a new album of mine, I'll then pay for a subscription to give me unlimited masters. So you could argue that this path might be more viable for an artist who likes to release EPs and LPs, collections of songs, as opposed to an artist that likes to release singles, a single here, 3 months later, a single there, etc. But regardless, do your research, look at the different algorithms that are out there available for you at their different price points. You might be surprised at what you find, because I can tell you it's definitely a lot cheaper than hiring a mastering engineer. So what is the point of all this? The point is, if you can detach yourself from the mastering process, it forces you to make your mix sound the best that it can. And now, as an aside, a lot of these mastering algorithmic programs will have options for you to choose from, like light, medium, or heavy compression, etc. I'd say choose the most neutral one you can and stick with it. Don't mess with that from song to song. And that's kind of why earlier I alluded to the fact that videos comparing these mastering algorithms from one to another can be dangerous in a certain light. Like if one video says this one is better than that one, oh, does that mean that my mix can not be as good going through that one? I can get away with it versus that one? No, definitely not. All of these algorithms are sufficient if your mix sounds up to snuff. With unlimited masters, I'll take a track where I think the mix is ready for mastering and I'll bounce it. But at that stage, I won't even listen to the bounce track in and of itself. I've done that, I'm past that point. I'll run it straight through the mastering algorithm. I'll walk away for 20 minutes. I'll come back. I'll listen to a reference track or two. And then, only then, will I listen to my song. With just those few simple steps, the deficiencies in your mix will stand out incredibly. And I said in your mix, not in your master. You didn't do your master, a computer just did. You're still listening to your mix. You're still analyzing your own mix. If the low end is too loud or too soft, it will stand out immediately. If your snare is too harsh, it will stand out immediately. If your high end is too grating, it'll stand out immediately. So that is my controversial take on mastering your own music. Don't do it if you can avoid it. I apologize for my pug Frank for making some awkward noises in the background. But yeah, don't master your own music if you can avoid it. So many of my peers told me that exact same thing when I was just starting out, and it took me years to realize that they were right. But hey, maybe you're a broke 19-year-old kid who can't afford the mastering algorithms that I've been talking about in this video. So in that case, my advice would shift from using 100% of your energy on your mix to using 99.5% of your energy on your mix and leaving that last 0.5 for the mastering. That's it. That's it. It doesn't change at all for anyone. The mix is always the most important thing, and that will never change. There are simple mastering techniques that you can perform on your master bus with the audio effects available to you in Ableton, or I imagine any other DAW that's out there. Maybe a light compressor, a limiter, or even a multiband dynamics. And there are plenty of videos on YouTube showing you how to do that. My name is Darren Murphy, aka More Precious Dust. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Please like and subscribe down below. It really helps out the channel. And I will see you next time.